Hi, my name is Eric Kinsey. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, and you're listening to Rulers and Riders, the podcast where we talk to creative people about what they do and what they ride. This week on the show, we talk to Dave Herr of Smithville Cycles and Fabrication in Bloomington, Indiana. Dave is a motorcycle builder and fabricator. He's previously been a tattoo artist as well as having his own retail store and skate shop. I've been friends with Dave for a pretty long time, and I never really quite knew that he was pretty much a serial entrepreneur most of his adult life. I also never knew until we sat down and talked about it that he once sold a skateboard to John Mellencamp. Dave is going to have his black stroker shovel that you may know from the Team Tough Guy account, and that's going to be at the Mama Tried show in Milwaukee coming up here in a few weeks in February. Dave will also have a booth for Smithville Cycles and Fabrication at the show, and he's going to share that booth with me, Rulers and Riders podcast, as well as Zalstra Choppers with Reese from episode 1. That'll be a pretty good time. We're all going to have some t-shirts and other merch for sale, as well as some free exclusive show giveaways. So please be sure to stop by, grab some stuff, and just say hi. All right, let's talk to Dave. So tonight we're talking to Dave Herr. How you doing, Dave?
Hey, bud.
So, man, I have known you for, probably close to 20 years.
Yeah.
A really long time.
I'd say that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah. And when I met you, you had tattoos, but not very many tattoos.
Uh-huh.
And I think you were...
That happened. Yeah, that happened. I wasn't born with them.
Yeah. They're not like weird freckles. So that's good.
Right. No. It's a long series of poor life decisions.
So you were playing upright bass in a rockabilly band.
Yeah. Did I have hair, or had I shaved by then?
I think you had a pretty respectable pompadour at that point.
I had pretty good hair. I really did.
You still have good
really
hair,
did.
dude. I'm jealous of it every time we get together.
It's very full.
Yeah.
But it would have been a shame not to. Yeah. So yeah, it was a band. I had never played music before in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I had some friends that had this rockabilly, traditional country kind of band that I had been going to shows. You know, I was in the hot rod stuff, and I'd been going to shows, and or I'd just go with them a lot. And so finally, when the last bass player of that band quit, they asked if I could learn how to. So yeah, so I learned to play a bass for one band that lasted a couple years.
Yeah.
And that was that. That was my musical career.
Yeah.
Nothing special.
Yeah, you guys are pretty decent, man. I saw you a few times.
Yeah. It is what it is. The polka dot dresses and
roses in the hair, all of that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
So you were born in well, we'll get back to that. But so you grew up in Bloomington, and
We grew up in Bloomington. We moved here when right before I started first grade.
yeah, and
Yeah, we lived out on the west side in a little super blue collar. Everyone in the neighborhood either worked at the factories or was unemployed.
yeah,
And it was a cool neighborhood to grow up in. Growing up riding dirt bikes, and then I got into skateboarding when I was in fourth grade, I believe.
yeah,
And this neighborhood's still kind of out there. But back then it was really out there. And
right.
there's a little neighborhood you see coming in down 37 off to the right hand side of the road heading south, the old exit from my old house.
Uh-huh.
There's a neighborhood that they just kind of ripped the whole front out of. There's like 20 houses just gone, and the whole neighborhood looks. It was this neighborhood that got forgotten about. And so it was out there, and now the highway's coming through, and people's houses are getting bulldozed. And Bloomington's really changed since I was a kid. It's changed a lot. It's grown a lot of people, and it was a blue collar neighborhood, dirt bikes, and I got into skateboarding. And we moved a little farther or a little closer into town, and that's when I really started skateboarding. Starting to meet kids that were my age that were into skateboarding.
Right. Now,
did that all through high school. And a little after, owned a skate shop out of, I forget when we started that, 99 maybe.
Uh-huh.
And did that for 4 or 5 years.
Right.
And the college town will support a skate shop, but that's it. It won't allow you to eat.
Yeah.
So I was working full-time jobs to pay bills at the skate shop, and after a while, it's I put everything I had into it, and that was that. So
what was
that's when I started tattooing.
What was the name of your skate shop?
True Skate Shop. We did True Skate Shop and Super Villain Skateboards. They had a skateboard company too.
Mm-hmm.
Midwest stuff.
Yeah.
But kind of the reason we started the shop was to kind of, I don't know, give back to skateboarding. Like, it really treated me well.
Right.
And so, at this point I had already blown my knee out. So, I don't know. I had always hoped and thought that I would go somewhere with it, and then I think it was 2 days before school was out, my senior year of high school. Big gap and blew my knee out, and
ouch.
I was into that.
Ouch.
It was rough. So I couldn't. It would pop out of place just standing sometimes.
Jesus.
Leaned on it the wrong way or something. It was,
ouch.
so I ended up having a second surgery in 2003.
Uh-huh.
But so it was just kind of. That's probably part of the reason it didn't do so great. I just hand kids,
Right.
The poor kid that, that's because that's what I was. When I was little, I didn't have money for skateboards, and,
Right.
my family didn't have money to buy skateboards for me, so, I got hand-me-downs or stuff like that, and so, I don't know, I guess once I started doing the shop, it was kind of like I want to give back to skateboarding. Skateboarding ruined my life, but it also, I think it saved me from a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
As a kid, yeah.
Yeah, it
ruined / saved me.
Yeah, I don't know. It always seemed like a really good place to start, and it always seemed like, even, now with, obviously there's a huge skateboard influence in, like, the chopper world and the hot rod world.
Yeah, that's insane. You
But-
can't deny it.
But
A lot of people want to forget it.
oh no, yeah, and it's crazy to forget it, but it's like, if you look even at how skateboarding has influenced media, I mean, of course, like with Jackass, but like a lot of filmmakers have come out of skateboarding in the last few years. I mean, bands, obviously. I mean, it's just a really great place for people to get their start, and it's still going strong. Like, I got into some like weird K-hole the other night of like watching skate videos on somebody's Instagram, and I was just like, what the hell, man? Just,
right. Yeah, I find myself doing that all the time because it's still like, like I still want to skateboard. I still want to. I don't know. I think a lot of it had to do with the time. When we were kids and we had to call each other on the telephone. You had to remember your friend's phone number.
Yeah.
It was I don't know. It was a time when we, as people, cared about each other more. I think not to sound too, touchy feely or but whatnot. But it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that kind of seems gone these days.
Yeah. I don't know. It always, for me, it always had this like real like adventure element to it. Of like going out and finding spots and like going on road trips with your buddies to like skate spots.
And that's why it progressed so well into skateboarding, especially for me, who just I couldn't skateboard. I was done.
Right.
I could barely walk. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of where I kind of got into choppers with that, I guess. 'Cause,
yeah. So
same thing.
So when you were a little kid, your dad's still a minister, but your dad was a missionary, right?
Yeah. I grew up as a missionary kid.
And you guys went to Croatia or Yugoslavia?
It's former Yugoslavia, Croatia now. It's a town called Zagreb.
Zagreb, yeah, of course. How did that happen? Your dad just was like, how did he choose going to Yugoslavia?
Dad was scouted by the Phillies and the Pirates for pitching.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, he was a really good pitcher, and he got hurt, and lost all that, lost scholarships, I guess. But so he decided he wanted to go into the ministry. So he found God in there somewhere, and it was his calling, I guess. And then so he met my mom, and I guess they had a hard time conceiving.
Right.
And they adopted me. I was adopted, and I think when I was about 6 months old, we moved over there as missionaries.
Wow.
Through seminary and all that stuff. So,
wow.
So it would have been 1979 or 1980. So it was a communist country.
Right.
So, which was super uncool for us to be over there as missionaries.
Yeah.
I guess there was kind of some. I'm trying to think. Tito, I believe.
Yeah.
He died. He would have died while we were there.
Yep.
I remember my parents talking about being like, oh boy. So
you're.
There was some tense times while we were there, I guess.
I bet. So your earliest memories are of growing up in Yugoslavia from like a very early age? That's crazy.
Yeah, I have super vivid, recollections of it. I've never been able to figure it out. But I can tell you all sorts of stuff, and you fact check it with my parents, and like, oh yeah, absolutely, that's exactly how that happened, or that's 100% true. They took a lot of film while we were over there.
Uh-huh.
So there's lots of my grandparents, I think, came over to visit at one point and brought a camera, and they filmed a lot. So I have a lot of that still. My grandpa transferred it over to VHS in the 90s, I believe.
That's great. That's great, man. So, you guys came back to Bloomington, and we
came back to Muncie.
Oh, you came back to Muncie, sorry.
Yeah.
Was your mom from Muncie?
No. My mom's a Southern Belle.
Oh, okay.
She was from Roanoke, Virginia. And later moved to, that's where the Kinseys were.
That's right.
And then later moved to Pennsylvania. Her dad worked for, he was an expert in chicken diseases and whatnot, so the state would call him a lot. I think he worked for DeKalb for a long time. And,
gotcha.
Yeah, they lived out in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Gotcha. So your parents met in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, they met in college out there. Yep.
How did they end up in Indiana?
I think either through my father wanting to do some studies at Ball State.
Yep.
Or just through the company, the missionary organization that they worked for, company, whatever you want to call it.
Gotcha. So, and how old were you when you moved to Bloomington?
I was about to start first grade.
Gotcha.
So we lived in Muncie, so we lived overseas for like 4 years, came back, adopted my middle brother, Muncie, Dayton for a year, and then Bloomington, Indiana.
Yeah. Right on, man. So, when you got into tattooing, before that, had you had any experience with like art education? Had you been drawing before that?
Yeah, I was kind of always like an artsy kid. Like I liked to draw a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I like to make things a lot, and like I was always messing with my skateboard. I was that kid that would always, take it apart and make sure everything was right.
Yeah.
Like from when I was a kid. Yeah, so I was true. I was kind of always artsy.
Yeah.
Kind of always weird.
Yeah.
I
Creative.
was a weird kid, kind of.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I had a lot of. I like high school was rad for me. Like it was a lot of fun. Like looking back on it, I was a total dork. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't have a bad childhood or bad, like high school experience that made me, hate my parents or whatever.
Well, for people listening that may not know, so Bloomington, Indiana. So Indiana is not a very big state. It's actually pretty small, and you can drive pretty much anywhere in Indiana in about 3 hours. Like you can drive from Evansville to Angola in maybe like 3.5 hours. So opposite corners of the state. So Bloomington is about an hour south of Indianapolis, and it's where the biggest university in the state is, Indiana University. And Bloomington is, it would be comparable to like Austin or Boulder, maybe not as over the top as like Berkeley, but it's a pretty, or Ann Arbor.
It's the San Francisco of the Midwest as well.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. So I'm imagining going to high school in Bloomington would be, and being a creative kid who's, rode a skateboard and liked to draw the things you would put on skateboards, it seems like it would be a little bit easier kind of rite of passage in going through your teenage years.
Everyone was friends with everyone.
Yeah.
Like it didn't matter what you were into. Like people talk about getting beat up by jocks all the time and stuff, and like it's not like even like the hill with the good old boys, like the dudes that lived out out where I'm at now, like even those guys were cool with everyone. Everyone partied with each other, like it wasn't clicky. It was it was clicky, but it wasn't, like
right.
Everyone was just cool, like you growing up in Bloomington, it's a town of like 40,000, I think, when school's not in session, and then 80,000 when school is.
Right.
And it's in the middle of southern Indiana, surrounded by forests. Like it's the Dalai Lama's brother had a restaurant here.
Yeah.
Like we have a huge Tibetan cultural center. Like huge, like gay, lesbian, population. Like, I think it's like one of the largest per capita in America. It's just
because it's a beautiful place.
It's a great city because you can just do. No one cares,
Yeah, people don't give a shit.
It's this weird clash, but it's a weird dynamic. You got these kids that kind of grow up like this, kind of like whatever, these town kids that just, and then you got this huge campus bringing in all these kids that come from other cities around the world where it's not really like that,
Right.
So you get this weird, like, the town people don't really like watch Breaking Away.
Yeah.
It came out in 1978. It's about a bicycle race the college puts on every year, and they swim in the quarries that are, if it was light out, you could hear me yell from my house to the quarries. Like it's right down the road. I think it's a mile at most.
Yeah, it's funny. There was a couple, I don't know, I think it was like right after you guys moved out to the new place, and I got a message from my friend Jimmy in California, just like out of the blue, and he said, "Eric, is Breaking Away the best movie ever made about Indiana?" And I'm like, I was like, it's a hard call, either Going All the Way or Breaking Away. And that's like the Indianapolis-Bloomington dynamic. And he said, do those quarries really exist? And I was like, I'm actually driving to Smithville where those quarries are right now. He's like, that's incredible. This guy, my friend Jimmy he lives in California, but he's from England. So it was really funny to me that seems so exotic, to somebody like swimming in stone quarries.
It's the same thing, just on a larger scale now. Like the movie's about this clash of working class and upper class, and it's still like the quarries. Like we're in limestone country.
Right.
The Empire State Building, the national monuments, all that
Pentagon.
stuff came out of the ground right here within 1 to 15 miles of me.
Yep.
So it's a working class, area. It's that surrounds this pocket of liberal.
That one Mellencamp video for Everyone Needs a Hand to Hold On To, where it's like all shot in like old quarries and.
Oh yeah. I couldn't tell you any more than maybe I saw it and rolled my eyes at one point. But
yeah.
That dude's
that guy.
So yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. So if people don't know, John Mellencamp's from Bloomington too, or from the Bloomington area. But yeah.
Oh yeah, dude.
And pretty much everybody that grew up in or around Bloomington has a John Mellencamp story, and they're all uniformly hilarious.
I have a great one from when he came into the skate shop once. and I asked him what the fuck he was doing in my shop.
What did he say?
And, well, he wanted to get a board for his kid, and he was like, I want to get a skateboard for my. He walked in. It was the middle of winter, and it was like a Christmas gift or something. And it's just dead that time of year. Usually, you get rushes and stuff, but I was just in there all day. He walked in. I just go, "What the fuck are you doing here, dude?" And he just kind of stopped and like kind of half smiled, and then was like, "My son wants a skateboard." I'm like, "Okay." Like, you know what he wants? And he's like, No. He's like, just put something together for me, the best stuff you got. I'll be back in like half an hour. I'm like, cool, no problem. He's like, you gonna give me a deal? I'm like, fuck no. All right. Sure enough, he came back in a half an hour.
Nice.
He helped out with the bills that day. But
nice.
I'm not saying I ripped the guy off, but he bought a top of the line board, and but that's the guy's an ass. He really is. But at the same time, it's like he knew what he was doing. He was helping out a small business.
Right. Right.
He didn't go to the mall. He didn't tell his kid to find it online. Which you could do easy back then. He said. He went down to the local skate shop. He had to ask someone. He had to find out where my skate shop was somewhere. So.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's kind of one of the other things. I mean, I don't live in Bloomington. I mean, I've lived in Indianapolis forever, but it's always been that like nearby place to like get away to. And one thing that's always struck me about Bloomington is there really is like this super strong sense of community. Like people help each other out. There's just...
It's like you're living in the Bob Newhart show.
Yeah.
The first one and the second one.
Yeah.
You're in the big city, and then you can come down here and see Larry, Daryl, and Daryl.
Yeah. And yeah, it's good stuff, man. So, how long after the skate shop? You tattooed for a pretty long time? How long was that?
13 years. I started getting tattooed right when I was 18, and started hanging around a tattoo shop as early as that, I guess. And I had some friends, just through artwork and artists and that kind of stuff. And I had some friends that had been tattooing for a couple of years, and they said, "You should learn tattoo." I said, "Absolutely not." 6 months later, I'm 6 months into my apprenticeship. So, I had nothing out. I was working in restaurants and whatnot, and I just didn't really have anything else. I never went to school. I couldn't afford school or anything like that. So,
right.
I worked in pizza restaurants and nice restaurants, and not so nice restaurants. But, just had jobs, I guess, do what you can.
Yeah. So, one of the things I've always thought, as far as, like, was really cool about your creative expression was, you're really good at doing that kind of, like, I don't know, I guess you would call it, like, tattoo art, like, the little paintings you do, and stuff. Yeah. Like, you kill it, dude. Like, it's great. I always really enjoyed the hell out of it. Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I hate it, but I've done it for a number of, I hate my own artwork, like it's just not, it's not never good enough for me, but I've done, I did the design that you asked me to do, and I'm super stoked on that, and I can't wait till you start getting stuff made for that. And I did a design for Speed Merchant a number of years ago, which was pretty cool.
Did you do a shirt for Show Class too?
Show Class and Split. I did that design. And it seems like maybe there was a couple others. Those guys have always been super awesome to me, and always been like really supportive, and like, I remember Tim called right before he started the magazine and just kind of was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Like,
Yep.
you want to be on board? And I don't know if I just didn't, like, take him seriously enough or whatnot. But, yeah, I've done some, articles for them and stuff like that. But those guys have always been super awesome to me and always been super supportive. And,
Yep.
And I wish I could do more. I just...
Yeah.
I got 3 kids, man,
Yeah.
But yeah, I've done some designs for them.
It's funny, and I don't like really try to make this podcast about choppers, but it kind of seems like it's chopper heavy, and that's fine. That's what I'm into.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. But there was when I was talking to David Brooks from Custom Vanner, like he told kind of a similar story about Tim, and about I think his story was more just about like how do I make a magazine, and
right.
And it's weird, dude. It's like you think you're like, because like Tim's like a history professor, like he's got like a master's in history, and so you go into a project, you get an idea for something, and you think you're like a capable, intelligent person, and then you realize like, I don't know how to physically print a magazine. I don't know how to draw. I don't know how to, I don't have any ideas beyond to take my ideas in my head and to like put them into like a, conceptual piece. And I think that's one of the things I've always admired about Show Class is that they are good at bringing people in and like making kind of like a collaborative thing, Like I've always really dug that about them.
Yeah, no, they're good guys. They do a great thing, and they've always been super supportive of me and whatever I do, and good guys.
Yeah, good stuff. So, sorry, I was having a funny thought about. We'll get to it. So you did tattooing for 13 years, and you worked at a couple different shops in Bloomington.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I knew you had. What was the bike you had before the Sportster? Before the Gold Sportster? Did you have like a cafe racer or something? Honda?
Yeah, kind of like a street fighter, cafe racer, kind of. It was, so there's, if you look through old Easy Riders, you'll see pictures of Bean Blossom, Indiana, or
the Bean Blossom Boogie,
Indiana.
Yeah.
Bean Blossom Boogie, yeah. From, I forget how long this thing's been going on. It's been going on forever. So, Bean Blossom's like, oh man, you can get there in 25, 30 minutes tops, from here.
Yeah. So
it's in this little artist colony area out called Nashville, Indiana, out in the woods. And the bike was built for the drag races out there.
Oh,
I think it was kind of like a run what you run kind of thing, and guys would just build these bikes and then come out to this big party that lasts for a week out in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, and race and drink and party. So yeah, it was kind of like a whole shot bike that you could ride on the street.
Yeah.
It was a 74 Honda 750. And it had a whole bunch of like race mods done to it, but it was real ratty, and I didn't really know much. I knew I wanted a motorcycle. I knew I had wanted a motorcycle for a long time, but could never afford one, or just like when we were growing up, our neighbors rode dirt bikes all the time, and we always wanted to ride, but my mom was super afraid of them.
Right.
We weren't allowed to ride one. I didn't grow up riding dirt bikes or anything like that. I got my first motorcycle about 2000, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And
2000, 2001, maybe somewhere around there.
Yeah, there was like a period, I don't know, I think kind of like around, I guess it'd be like 2001 to 2003, I kind of like fell out of the whole rockabilly thing. Like, mainly I had like, moved on for music, but like, I just kind of got tired of it, honestly. And so I didn't see you around as much. And then I just remember, gosh, it's probably a little later than that. I mean, I remember seeing you in Louisville when you had your Dodge.
At the car show, car show stuff, yeah.
But I remember I was cruising around Bloomington, or just cruising around Southern Indiana. I think I was with my kids, and we were driving through Nashville, and I saw this like gold chopper in the distance, and like the sun.
Oh yeah,
the sun.
That was the same bike as the gold. That was a few bikes later. So fast forward a number of years, and or a couple years, I guess, and it was the gold Sportster, but I bought this thing bright ass yellow, like it was my first Harley, and I was like super stoked on this '90s Evo Sportster, and
right.
I think I finally have a Harley, I got super stoked on that, and because I said that I was starting to get into choppers, and there was a bookstore down the street that had Dice, so it was like kind of the first like there's the TV shows and stuff, but they never sat well with me,
Right.
And, once I found Dice and stuff like that, it was kind of like, oh,
yeah,
this is I want to be able to build these things. I want to be able to do these nice, super clean choppers,
right.
So, there's some of that on the TV shows for sure. But, and then the other thing that you have to point out is to people that aren't from the Midwest is this is all we saw. It's just like skateboarding when we were kids. We were so isolated that all we saw of the outside world of skateboarding was what we saw in like Thrasher.
Right.
So
maybe
that's kind of how it was with choppers at the time. We hadn't really, we weren't really exposed to this, and so once we started kind of seeing the stuff come out, it was a weird time to kind of get into choppers, but a lot of dudes did at that time.
Right.
A lot, and it's the same thing. A lot of people want to forget that.
Yeah. Well,
I grew up and I was born in
no. Yeah.
Born in a Harley shop. So it's...
My dad was in a club, I think...
My dad was an old 1%. Yeah, everyone.
Yeah. I think it's... I just remember that time of the sort of like early chopper people where, I remember like those Jesse James shows and like people were like, $60,000 for, a chopper and like tanks, like everything was like super custom, like $1,000 for a tank. And I'm like, man, I'll never be able to afford that. Like that's crazy. And, and I think by that time I'd probably just got my first Harley Ironhead, and it wasn't like on the road yet. And so then I ended up running into you, and we just kind of like reconnected, and been pretty good buddies ever since then, man.
It was like a greenish gold, right?
Well, I'm colorblind, Dave. So
yeah, okay. Yeah, it was like a gold.
Yeah, it was gold. Yeah.
No, I bought the stock bike, and like, I think I ordered some apes and some grips, and took an FLH front fender and made it a rear fender or something like that.
Yeah.
But I remember that. Yeah.
When you the version that I saw, and the one that bike ended up going into Dice.
No, that was that, and then I think that like the first day I finished it, like it still had it was all stock. It was all 100% stock, except like I said, I rattle canned the tank and the fender and made a fender,
right.
And wrote it like that I think I made a seat for it or something like that, and wrote it for I don't know, maybe a week, and it was like, nope.
Yeah.
And wanted kind of more like a racy or Frisco style kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you had
that's what was in Dice.
That was yeah. And you had that for a couple years, right?
Yeah, I rode that for a number of years.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how long. I know it was more than one and less than 10.
Yeah. But that,
or 5, I don't know.
that one seemed like it really got you like on the map as far as like, people that were building bikes and building nice, clean bikes that, went well and looked good. And then, what'd you get after that? Generator shovel?
Yeah, I was building a generator shovel at that time.
Yeah.
The other bike that was in Dice.
Yeah. And you sold the Sportster to a movie director?
Yeah. Yeah, he was a friend of Matt Davis from Dice, who hooked me up with him. And that bike was always super good for me. Like, it was my first, like, full-on kind of, like, build, like I got a Paco frame and a welder and, a grinder, like...
Making sparks.
There was some rough stuff to it, but at the same time, it was like, I don't know, I found something that I loved,
Yeah.
And I really wanted to build something and build something nice.
Yeah.
And, like a chopper, but I wanted it to look good, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wanted it to be a chopper still, like as much as I wanted it kind of like, when I was like, oh man, like show bikes, that stuff's kind of cool, like.
Yeah. It's chrome and it's
like
shiny.
It's kind of one of those things, but if you look through, again, looking through old magazines and stuff, like all the clubs would, they'd all have these shows. They'd all build these show bikes and stuff, and stuff.
Yeah, and they rode them too.
That's where, they rode the shit out of them, like Rooster's bike and the stuff that like the magazines I was finding was like stuff from the 80s and the 60s and the, so.
Yeah.
I've always kind of been into like older history. Like I like to know where stuff came from. I don't know if I equate it to like a simpler time when people still gave a shit about each other. I don't know. Like,
yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there was definitely a period where there were kind of like those ratty bikes, and then like, sort of like when people were first, like getting into choppers around here, there were those ratty bikes, and then kind of suddenly it was like people developed some skills, and there were all of these new people making parts, and there were places you could buy parts, and then people started making like nice, cool bikes that were, old club style, stock rake, maybe 4 to 6 over forks, and just, I don't know, just that classic style that people have done and are still doing. And I don't know. You were like the first guy with a chopper that was like around here that was like a nice chopper. Like everybody else kind of either had like some 250 big ass rear wheel type chopper,
right? Some goofy bullshit, but
or some like Kawasaki with a frame made out of fucking electrical conduit or something.
Right.
But yeah, so then you had the generator shovel, and that kind of like overlapped with you sort of making an exit from tattooing and starting Smithville Fabrication, right?
Yeah, so, oh man, I started building that bike, I forget, and the more that I kind of, that bike took forever, and I'll be the uncool guy here, and I'll mention what no one wants to say, like no one wants to talk about it, but like, that's kind of when Instagram was starting.
Uh-huh.
Like as much as I don't like to say it and no one else wants to hear that word right now, it's like that's what we deal with now in life, and that's a whole another topic, but
right.
That is how we have connected so many people.
Uh-huh.
I hate it and I love it at the same time. Right. I love, but anyway, so like that's kind of when that was all starting, and the blogs were dying, like that whole, that the blogs really got a lot of people in the choppers, and
uh-huh.
and it's the truth, like,
yep.
Sit there and roll your eyes or talk shit, but like,
yeah,
it is what it is,
yeah,
and it's and it's like right back to like what I was talking about when we were kids with skateboarding, like you're all of a sudden connected to something else that you don't know about, like
right.
Yeah, so the internet outer space.
Yep.
So yeah, like it's social media has kind of really changed the chop scene this time around, I guess, for a lot of people that kind of got into it.
Uh-huh.
At the beginning of all that stuff. So,
yep.
Yeah, some of us weren't cool enough to grow up around it, like, what? How many chopper cred points do I lose because of that?
Yeah, well,
Give this shit.
Nobody ever says like, man, I was a suburban white kid, and my parents were really loving and supportive, and
I love my parents.
Yeah, like I feel super fortunate to have my parents and grow up in a family business, and in a cul-de-sac in a ranch house. I mean, I
was growing up to so like everyone right now is like, fuck this dude, he grew up in a Christian family or what, like, no, we grew up treating people the way you want to be treated, like it's super, it's not a hard concept, like,
yeah, and accepting people for who they are.
Yeah, exactly. So what, that guy's gay, or like, who cares? Like, how does that really affect you? Like,
exactly.
Anyone that says it really does, I don't know, whatever. That's just, but again, that's my opinion. Everyone's got their own goddamn opinion, and then the downfall of modern man is social media, because everyone can say their own opinion whenever. And
yep.
You're wrong for having your own opinion. Like if your opinion's different than someone else's, then you're whatever. So
yeah.
Whew, here I go.
So you had what color was that bike? Was it red and black? I apologize for being colorblind, but like I don't know. I think I know it was black.
It was green and red.
Was it really?
No, it was black. It was black, and it had.
It's bad, dude.
It was black, and it had like a panel on the side of the tank that was
right.
red and red and silver, white, pearl white. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I'm not crazy. All right. So
super simple, no frills paint job.
Yeah, that was a super nice bike. So So
thank you.
Oh yeah, it was great. I loved it. So when you were sort of thinking about getting out of tattooing, I mean, I think you had told me you just kind of like reached like a saturation point with it, and you just were, I don't know. You just seemed like, I think you just sound like you were just really burnt out with it.
I just wasn't happy anymore, you know, like,
Yeah.
I just, it was doing something that I grew up loving to do with, like, artwork or making things, you know, like drawing something.
Mm-hmm.
Just, and it was all of a sudden, it wasn't fun anymore, you know, it was a job, it was, you know,
A grind.
stress and the grind, the hours, like, it's, you know, like a lot of things have changed over the course of 20, 30 years in tattooing, but it's still a tattoo shop.
Right.
You know, like it's still like, I don't know, it's, yeah.
Yeah.
So having a family and that kind of stuff, and I don't know, I didn't want to really be around all that as much anymore, and it just wasn't fun.
Yeah.
And I was having way too much fun, like learning how to build motorcycles and stuff. It was, you know, like motorcycles have been throughout their entirety with me. It's like finding skateboarding, you know, like when I got into it, like I get into something, you know, like I don't half-ass things, and so, which is, you know, to a fault, you know, I guess, but, you know, like, what's the point of half-assing something? Like, why, you know, like, why would you, I don't know, I don't get it.
Why would you half-ass something when you can full-ass something?
Yeah, why would you half-ass, never half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so I started really getting into it then, so.
Yeah. And you...
I forget where we were going with that.
Well, that's okay. So you kind of made the transition. I know you went and worked at another shop for a little bit. And,
I worked in this shop it was a shop I learned to tattoo in. I worked there for 10 years, I think, and it was cool, and I met a lot of good friends and stuff, and then I went to work at another shop, and it was this super, like, it was ran like a super gnarly 80s biker tattoo shop, which was cool, you know, like, it was cool because I could, like, the owner didn't give a shit if I fucking pulled my bike into the shop and worked on it, and, you know, or like out in the parking lot laying on the ground, and hey, you got a tattoo, cool, you know, like,
right.
Smoke and drink in the back of the shop, and
right.
It was cool, and you really couldn't ask for much better in a tattoo shop if that's what you want to do, but it just, the more, I just wanted to make things in the garage, you know, I just wanted to be out there and, like, build something, so.
Right. And you've been doing Smithville Fabrication for almost a year.
I don't know. I guess finally, I don't know, 6 months, a year?
Almost a year, it seems. Well, probably close to a year, it seems like.
Yeah. I haven't tattooed in a year, so.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's cool, man. I mean, we've been friends for so long and, like, you know, good friends and talked so much. I guess I never realized how much of, like, a serial entrepreneur you've been your whole life.
I've always tried to, I don't know, try to make it on your own, I guess, and just kind of, I don't know.
Yeah. It's not always...
I've found the more you rely on other people, the more you'll be let down, and I guess...
No shit.
This last year has kind of been a real struggle with that, but it was kind of like, all right, I'm finally... You know, I've always worked at a shop or worked for someone, and then this last year it's kind of been, you know, it's okay. I just gotta do what I can here.
Right.
And, I just wanted to be happy, I guess, is what it was. It was like, you know, and that's kind of like, I wanted to quit tattooing for so long. And it just kind of, I don't know, the course of the last year was a real, just, I don't know, learning curve, and just kind of taking everything in stride, and it'll all work out. Just that you gotta be happy, you know.
Yeah, you
can't want to blow your brains out every day.
No.
You gotta find what makes you happy. And
yeah, you do, man. And I had my own, like, about 10 years ago, I had my own antique shop, and I loved it. I went to school for history, and I've always loved architecture and building things with my hand. And when I was doing it, I loved it. I really poured my energy and all the money I had into it, and I just I realized I was like, there's some real motherfuckers in the world, man. There's just some people that you think they're going to help you out, or you think they got your back, and turns out they're out for themselves. And
there's a whole world of them out there.
Yeah, there is.
We forget how many people there is, and everyone's different, and we forget how, like, every single stress you have in your life right now, your neighbor's got the same one, just in different ways, completely unaware of your entire existence, other than you're his neighbor.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So there's so many people, and people do some shitty stuff, and I don't know why that is, but it's always been like that, I guess. But it just seems more and more these days.
Or I think we get older and we realize just how like how to the point it is. It's like people can't hide behind like youthful inexperience anymore at our age.
No,
I don't know, but I think one thing with you, dude, where I really have to hand it to you is like you have a great wife, you have awesome kids, you have an awesome, like, your parents are lovely people. You even met your grandparents; they're cool, and you're just your willingness to, like, go out on your own, man, and just take a leap of faith. I know it too well, but sometimes you take that leap of faith and you land on your ass. But there's a lot of people that never do it, man. There's a lot of people that just never.
I have a nightly panic attack. And it's a lot of days I look in the mirror and, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, really? Just go get a job at a factory and hate life or something,
Right.
I don't know. You gotta do what you gotta do, and you gotta be happy, and it's if you live your whole life in this idea that you have to, go to work and get a job and just hate everything all the time, and then what are you working towards?
Yep.
Working.
You're working toward.
Working for what? You're gonna wake up someday and you're gonna be 70 years old and you're gonna be like, I hated my job for the last 40, 50 years, and
Yeah.
So yeah.
But
it makes you happy, I guess.
I don't know, dude. I really have to hand it to you. You're a great dad. Your kids are obviously crazy about you.
That's my number one goal in life.
Yeah.
Is what my kids will remember me by. Okay? I really, getting a bike in a magazine or any of that stuff, being invited to Born Free or Pan or none of that. It's that'd be rad. that, you know, obviously because it's like a business, from a business standpoint, but, you know, like and that's the damn of it all, you know, like you got to have business to support your family, you know, so like, but, you know, like my kids take, you know, precedent over any of that stuff. My family, you know, like, and that's definitely one thing I've learned the past couple of years. Friends and family are, that's a real important thing.
Yep, absolutely it is, man. So, so we're gonna be like you and me and Reese are gonna be at Mama Tried,
right?
And we're gonna have a booth and
or a table or. We might get bumped down to a single folding chair. I'm not sure. So there might be a single folding chair with.
We could sit on each other's laps. We could do like a.
No, it's not to sit in. That's for the merchandise.
Oh, okay.
Folding chair.
Oh, okay. All right.
We don't get it. I mean, milk crates you can find one.
Right. Yeah. So we'll be there. So that'll be good. That'll be good for.
Yeah.
You know,
our
businesses.
It's a cool show because it's a cool show because it's Midwest. You know, like it's the middle of the winter. I love going to that show because it's like everyone that hasn't seen each other since the summer gets to come out and see what people are building and see each other. Yep. Yeah, it's a fun show. I really like it.
Yep. And
Scott and Warren do a great job with that.
Yes, they do. But yeah, man. So we'll be there, and have some merch to sell and talk to people and check out other bikes and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on, man. Well, thanks for talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, that was my conversation with Dave Herr of Smithville Cycles and Fabrication. Definitely stop by and check out Dave's Instagram. Also, don't forget that he'll be set up at Mama Tried. That's coming up in a couple weeks, February 18th and 19th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You can stop by the Mama Tried website and you can find out details about the show, the times, where it's going to be, as well as admission and so on and so forth. And I'll include that in the show notes. If you haven't been to Mama Tried before, don't let yourself be scared off by the cold weather. Last winter, we had a pretty mild one here in the Midwest, and it was hovering around, 40 degrees. Even had a friend come from Australia, and he was pleasantly surprised just by how nice it was. Lots of great stuff going on there. Awesome bikes, great art, great photography. And Friday night is going to be the Flat Out Friday, and that's where it's flat track racing on a concrete floor with some added Dr. Pepper syrup for traction. Really one of the things that I look forward to all winter, just to break the cabin fever. So check it out. Stop by and see us, buy a t-shirt, and if you like the show, just definitely let me know. I always appreciate meeting my listeners. Also, definitely want to check out the blog for more pictures of Dave and his bikes and stuff. If you have a few minutes, be sure to stop by iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. That helps us go up in the ratings, as well as it helps other people find this sort of content. And anything else? Oh yeah, if you're over on Instagram, please be sure to follow the Rulers and Riders profile. I'll spell that out for you. That's Rulers _ and the word and _ Riders. I think that's it. I'm pretty sure that's it. I don't know. I'll listen to this back, and if I have something more to add, I'll just record it again. As always, thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you down the road.